No, not a problem. Is everybody else okay? Everybody ready to go? All right, so thank you all for coming to the town of Plymouth this afternoon. This is a very important subject that we need to talk to you all and specifically to the community about what has transpired over the previous 48 days. Before I begin, I want to recognize the important work and the advocacy by our state delegation. Senator Susan Moran's not with us today, but she's been leading the effort on behalf of the delegation. I have to my right Representative Muratore and Representative Muratore also here, who again have been on multiple calls with us over the last 24 hours, so we can get a better sense of what's going on in our community. I want to also introduce a number of town officials who have also been a part of this effort to help us understand what we need to do as a community. Chief Flynn, our police chief, Chief Foley, our fire chief, Brad Brothers, our assistant town manager, Karen Keene, our public health director, and Chris Horvath, our emergency management director, are all here today. So if you have any specific questions about those disciplines, they're gathered here today to help communicate with the public. So again, oh, and Charlie Bletzer, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Charlie Bletzer, our one of our select board members is here as well, representing our 5-member elected body. So again, Charlie, thank you for coming. So I want to provide some information because we've received so many media inquiries, and instead of taking these one by one as information evolves, we thought it'd be best to bring everyone together to have this conversation. So I'm here just to give you an update, and my purpose is to give you an update on the information that we have. And at the end of this, you may realize that we don't have as much information as you would anticipate. However, that being said, I want you to know that I received a phone call Tuesday evening from a representative from the Department of Housing and Community Development who had informed me that the State Department had secured 27 hotel rooms here in the town of Plymouth. And those 27 hotel rooms are split amongst 2 different hotels. They had informed me that evening that 8 families would be arriving immediately that evening. And then they would expect that over the course of the coming days, the other 19 families would be arriving. Now, these are migrant families coming from various locations presently in Massachusetts. And so we're still trying to understand exactly where they're coming from and trying to understand some of their needs. Of those families, we now have, as of 3 p.m. this afternoon, we've been informed that 11 families are now here in town. Of those 11 families, 24 of them are children. 11 of those children are actually school-age children as well. So again, we're expecting 27 families to be here in town in the coming weeks. The agency that the Department of Housing and Community Development has contracted with is a nonprofit agency known as NeighborWorks. They're the lead agency. They've been contracted by the state to provide food, shelter, and clothing to these families, and then wraparound case management services such as WIC, transportation, SNAP, and Mass Health. So those are the direct services that NeighborWorks will be providing to these families. In addition to that, DHCD has contracted with a private security firm. This security firm is expected to provide security on the premises in the off hours. We've been told that state officials will be on the premises during the work hours Monday through Friday, and then the off hours, the private security firm will take the lead. The primary languages that we have been told that we will see coming to town are English, Haitian Creole, and then Spanish. So that's as much information we have on potential language challenges with these families. We've also been told that the state is expecting that this is going to be a short-term mission and that we expect it to end by January 1st, 2023. Those are the facts. There's a number of questions you may have. We'll try to answer them as best that we can. If we can't answer those questions, we do have the Public Information Officer and the Director of the Division of Housing and Stabilization who have offered their assistance in answering any questions that you may have. So I'll pause there to answer any questions. And again, state delegation, local officials here as well to answer any questions you may have.
Is this unusual? Have you ever experienced anything like this before? And were you given a reason why that there are so many families coming to your town, and why your town?
Sure. So before I begin, so any of these questions that anybody else would like to answer, feel free to jump in. So what we've been told that these most of these families are already residing here in Massachusetts, and that for many different reasons, these families no longer have shelter. And the state had put together a plan to provide emergency shelter to these individuals. So again, some of them, they have told us, are from the South Shore community, but some of them are far and wide across Massachusetts. And from what we understand, some of them have been relocated from other states across the U.S.
Sure. Just want to follow up on that. The Baker-Polito administration, as you're probably all aware, actually put a policy in place years ago that any families would not be on the street if they're homeless, that there's an emergency process in place, and this is the emergency process, that they would be located to various temporary shelters until a permanent solution is made. So it's part of that ongoing process.
With so many children now moving here to Plymouth, coming from other parts of Massachusetts, how will the school system be able to handle that? Are they going from one school to another here in Plymouth? How will that work?
So that's a great question. That's an unknown answer at this time. So at this point, there's a couple of things that are in play. We need to understand who those children are and where they're coming from. So many of these children are already in a school system in Massachusetts. And so I think the primary goal is to try to keep those children in their existing school system, depending on where that is in Massachusetts. If we're unable to attain that, the secondary goal is to try to allow them to transition into the Plymouth public school system.
Has the state said why you haven't gotten advance notice, or why you didn't get advance notice to be able to plan and prepare?
That's a great question. We've asked that question multiple times, and that's a tough question to answer. I think they would say, and it's probably a question for them to answer, but they would say that this was an emergent situation, it was an evolving situation, and they had to react quickly.
We spoke with one man who came from Florida to Boston. He planned to move to Boston, said the state then brought him actually to Kingston. What do you think about the choice of Plymouth and Kingston as communities to at least temporarily settle these folks, given that there's limited public transportation and many of them can only get as far as they can walk from the hotel?
Well, I would say that Plymouth, when I look at the town of Plymouth, I look at a couple of things. We provide services here in town. And so, folks that are homeless and need those types of wraparound services, they seek communities like Plymouth. And so we do have social services, that's one. And two, we have public transportation, which is very unique than a lot of other suburban communities. So I think in many respects, that's why they've chosen the town of Plymouth. But, I would say that one thing, if you know anything about Plymouth, Plymouth always rises to the occasion as a community. And we collectively are here because although we didn't have a part in the planning process, we want to make sure that these individuals have all the support that they need so that they can be successful and that they can find permanent housing in the future.
I just want to follow up with that too. If I may follow up with that too. It's a good question. This is not going to end here. As the winter months are now setting in, we're going to see more and more homelessness happening, particularly with families. So to try to get them back to what I said, with the processes in place of the Baker-Polito administration, is to actually get them temporary housing, which is hotels, motels. Not the ideal situation, but better than being on the street. So we're going to see more and more of this throughout the Commonwealth, not just in this area. So it will happen more and more. And I think some of it has to do with the evictions. People are being evicted from their homes now too, because of the the emergencies have gone away through the COVID. So we don't have those emergency declarations in place anymore. So people are being escorted out of their places.
Speaking on the success of these families, does it put you in a tough spot because many of the adults technically can't work? They're relying on a lot of state and local resources. What is the future of these families here in Massachusetts?
That's a great question. I don't know if either one of the state reps would like to answer that, but I think it's a tough one to answer.
I think I think it's Samantha Kaufman is the contact person from the state that can probably, from Department of Housing and Community Development, she's probably better apt to answer the overall policies in the state and what's going to happen. I think she's probably the best person you can contact. And if you need her information, we can give it to you afterwards.
How would you like to see their future here? Do you think this is like a temporary place for them to
It's-
stay until the next spot opens up? Or do you want them to find careers here? I mean, what's the...
Look, at Plymouth welcomes everybody. And if we can, look at some of our restaurants and hotels and all that, they need workers. So we would welcome them here in our community to help out in the thriving economy that we actually have here. So, but we need to get them in places that are more home. Hotel, motels are not the best place. Again, it's an emergency situation for now, but we need to find them more permanent housing, and that's what the department's going to be looking at doing.
Yes, I'd like to speak to that. If they're going to be relocated here on a long-term basis, I would hope that we can find them jobs, because Plymouth, we have a lot of small businesses, a lot of tourist businesses that frankly can't get help. So we're really short on our workforce. So I hope that these folks that are going to be staying here are able to get jobs with us, because there's a serious need for it. You know, not just Plymouth, but Kingston, the whole surrounding area. So I think a lot of restaurants, if the folks are qualified, would love to have them come and work for them. So, you know, Plymouth has always been a welcoming town. That's how we were built from the very beginning, with the, you know, the Italians and the Portuguese and the Irish that came here. And so if there's a long-term plan for them, I hope that we can get them into jobs in this town. So,
Seems like a federal issue more than a local issue.
yeah, I think it is. So, because they need to have, obviously, to be able to work, so they need paperwork for that. So, but anyway, that's out of my hands. So, but
Yeah, and I would just say that Selectman Bledsoe in particular is very engaged in our local business community and talks to them on a regular basis and understands their needs as business entrepreneurs and the workforce that they're trying to develop. So I think he makes great comments there.
You mentioned that a security firm will provide round the clock or after-hour security. Whose decision was that, and why is that?
That's a state decision.
Did they say why?
They did not. They did not.
Are you satisfied with the response from the state without getting much of a heads up on this?
We have a long way to go. We have a very long way to go. There's a lot of questions that we're seeking answers for. You know, if we pride ourselves on planning, we like to lean forward here in this community, and we would have hoped that we could have been a part of the planning process early on, so that this would have been a more seamless transition into our community.
And to be clear, you said most of the families were already living in Massachusetts. It's not they were just flown in.
From what we understand, again, it's still part of our fact-finding mission. From what we understand, many of the residents or the migrants, as the state defines them, have already been residing here in the Commonwealth.
Do you have an idea of how long, are these people who are recent immigrants? Are they residents of the state for a long time?
Yeah, again, we don't have that information. But as the representative pointed out, Samantha Kaufman is a public information officer, and we can share her contact information to help answer some of those questions.
I think a lot of people might be wondering why now, you know, because we all covered, you know, the issue with Martha's Vineyard, you know, why are all these people leaving the place to stay now? I know someone touched on it, that maybe recently with COVID and restrictions and evictions and stuff, but any other thoughts of why there's this big need for all this?
Again, you know, those are state policy decisions, and from what the information that's been relayed to us, and Muratore touched on it, that, you know, some of them have been here for some time and have come from other countries and just, I think, kind of bouncing around from community to community. But let's be honest, that's not a healthy lifestyle to lead. And some of the issues around COVID, but I'm going to defer to
Thank you.
Muratore.
Thank you. I also represent Kingston as well as Plymouth. And, you know, let's face it, our rental prices are out of sight. Our homes, we have lack of homes. There's nothing on the market. So that's a really large part of this. We as well, the Kingston community wish we had a lot of notice too, so we could have the services in place before they came. But right now, we're giving them what they need, and we're meeting their immediate needs. But really, the rentals in Massachusetts is a big issue.
Did you draw the connection? Did you just draw that line a little tighter? Why high rents? Because these people would normally go into shelters that would be provided.
They would. So from my understanding, right, from my understanding, the shelters are full.
Right.
So this is an overflow. When I had first called DHCD, this is an overflow situation from the shelters. And this is not ideal to have families in hotels, but that's what they had to start to do, was call hotels and who would accept these families. So it's an overflow situation, which stems, a lot from our housing crisis and our rentals.
Can you talk about how tough it's been to help when you have more, it seems like more questions than answers here? Like, how do you step up to the job when you don't know where they're coming from, how many there will be, and that must be tough for you guys.
It's extremely difficult. Yeah, when we first heard about this Tuesday night, I had informed, the select board, our elected chief executive body, and then I had engaged all the staff that you see here today. And a lot of those questions came from the chiefs, came from emergency management and public health. And that's when we started to try to understand what was happening and try to uncover, I would say, the lack of cohesiveness and coordination that should have taken place. And so it's been difficult. And so, excuse me?
Who's to blame there with the lack of cohesion?
Let me take that. Let me take that. So, I think it's not. I hear what you're saying. Tiffany. It's not really a blame game per se. It's an emergency situation that's come up. Now, we've been on a couple of calls with the state in the last 24 hours. The last one we just got off at 3 o'clock. That was, I got to be honest, it was very frustrating. But Undersecretary Maddox has committed the resources that are needed for both communities moving forward, and I think that's where we need to be at this point. I think they've learned a lot of lessons from sending folks to Kingston and Plymouth over the last 4 or 5 days, and heard the frustration from all of us in the last 24 hours of how they can be better, and they've committed to be better. And again, Undersecretary Maddox is committed to that, to improve that communication, because again, this is going to happen, as you just said earlier, it's going to happen throughout the Commonwealth even more and more as the winter months get colder.
And can you just confirm the numbers? I know you said about a dozen families currently in
11 families.
I also see some people reporting, 100 people, but that might be including Kingston. Do you have?
Sure. So I'll speak for the town of Plymouth, and I don't know if Rep. Lenato can speak to Kingston, but I can tell you right now that we've been informed that there are currently 11 families here in the town of Plymouth, and then of those 11 families, 24 are children.
And you mentioned 27 families coming to town, is that total?
That's correct. For the town of Plymouth, 27 families are expected to be here. Those are the number of rooms that have been secured by the state.
27 rooms.
27 total rooms have been secured by the state.
How about in Kingston?
So in Kingston, we started with 9 families, and we're up to 27 families, which is 101 people, 65 children, and I believe there's 20 under the age of 4.
Are they in schools yet?
They are not in schools yet. We're still doing intake there. They were contracted with someone else, with the Plymouth Area Coalition, and they've been on site doing intake, finding out some of the children have been in school, where they've been in school, what grade they're in, and just a health assessment at the moment.
State and Plymouth are not in school as well.
No.
The state seems to indicate that one of the criteria that it's using or may be using is that schools with relatively low enrollment might be able to accept these families more easily. Is that the case with the local schools? Do you have excess capacity? Have you heard about that as a factor?
Yeah, I would say that, like a lot of schools in Massachusetts, in my experience, that many of the school systems in Massachusetts actually have declining enrollment. So I don't think that's unique to Plymouth or Kingston. I think that's kind of the trend in Massachusetts right now. So I would imagine, and our assistant town managers here, I think the school system has a declining enrollment the last couple of years, correct?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Service, yeah. We absolutely have room. The issue is it's grade specific. So one school may have capacity, let's say, in grade 4, but without knowing what age brackets we have coming, we really can't fully answer that question. But throughout the system, there's definitely a grade level that we could fit everyone in here.
And our assistant town manager was recruited from the school department, so that's how he has some information.
What hotels in Plymouth are your family staying at?
So that's a great question, and honestly, I'm going to defer that one to the state, and I'm going to tell you why, because, you know, these families, they need privacy, and I can tell you that there have been reports coming out of Kingston of once the public realized where those folks were living, it started to become an attraction. And so we want to ensure that these folks have the privacy. Now, if the state wants to release that information, you know, I'll defer to them.
Is it safe to say that all of these families are migrant families, immigrant families, and do you know the status?
Certainly, we don't know the status, and I can only share with you the term that the state used with me when they called me on Tuesday night, and they referred to them as migrants. Any other questions? Okay, so we will do our best to try to keep the community informed and keep you all informed. This is a evolutionary process, and so we hope that tomorrow at 3 p.m. we can provide further information. We'll try to disseminate that via social media, but if anything of importance breaks, we probably reconvene in this type of setting.
Could we just ask everybody who spoke briefly to just step to the mic and say and spell your name so we get that?
Sure, do you want me to start with myself? Okay, so Derek Brindisi, I'm the town manager. Do you want to spell my name? Okay, first name is Derek, D-E-R-E-K, last name is Brindisi, B-R-I-N-D-I-S-I.
I'm Kathy Lenatra with a K, L-A, capital N-A-T-R-A, and I am the state rep for the 12th Plymouth District.
I'm Matthew Muratore, and that's with one T, not two T's, Matthew. Muratore, M-U-R-A-T-O-R-E, and I am the representative of the 1st Plymouth District, which includes 3/4 of the town of Plymouth.
I'm Charlie Bletzer, B-L-E-T-Z-E-R, and I'm a member of the Select Board in Plymouth.
Brad Brothers, Assistant Town Manager. You guys can figure that one out. One thing I would like to add, though, while I have the mic for 1 second, is we are very thankful for the outpouring of calls and things we've gotten so far here in the Town Manager's office especially. A lot of people want to donate. They want to find out who the contact is. We will let everyone know as soon as we connect the dots on that, because we're still trying to figure out what items are needed. People want to donate gift cards, clothing. We're trying to connect the dots on that, and as soon as we do, we will put a message out on who the contact is for that. So I just want to add that. Thank you.
Okay, any other last questions? They just wanted the people that spoke. Okay, so thank you all for coming. We'll keep you posted.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Very much for coming.
Oh, somebody thought I spoke. No.